Nigerians trooped to 12 different centers across the country today to discuss changes to the Nigerian constitution as agitations grow over the state of the polity. And Delta State government says it has not received the payment of the Ibori loot as announced by the Accountant General of the Federation yesterday. We get details on the side of Delta State government. A pleasant evening to all of you, wherever you may be watching tonight. Welcome to Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale at Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. It's a midweek edition of the program, and we shall be giving you details and insights to the efforts being made to alter the 1999 Constitution. But before we get into that, let's tell you about what the Accountant General of the Federation said yesterday, which was in contradiction to the Attorney General of the Federation over the Ibori loot. The Minister of Justice told Channels Television that the funds will be plowed into 3 major federal projects. But the Accountant General said yesterday that the monies have been paid to Delta State government. But today, the Delta State government is reacting. It says that the £4.2 million Ibori loot from the United Kingdom to the federal government is yet to hit its coffers. Take a listen to the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor of Delta State.
We appreciate the willingness of the federal government to return that money to Delta State where it rightly belongs. But the truth is that that money has not hit the account of Delta for our state government. We saw it yesterday, like every other Nigerian, that when the Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, while appearing before the House of Representatives Committee on Recovered Assets, made that statement, and there was this avalanche of inquiries to know whether the money had come to us. And the truth, like I told you, is that the money hasn't come. But we're happy that they've shown willingness, shown disposition to send the money, and we know that very soon the money will come, having started the process. And I must add that the state government is in constant touch with them. We were in contact with the federal government through the office of the Attorney General of the Federation. And I assure you that when the money arrives, like it's obvious it will arrive, and they haven't started the process as it were, we will acknowledge it and let the public know. We should also assure that, like we have always done, the money will be properly deployed to reasonable infrastructure that Deltans will appreciate.
Tonight, we will dwell on issues relating to Nigeria's structure and the agitations about the Constitution. But before we get started, let's check out some of your political roundup stories.
President Buhari says he believes Nigeria will overcome the current security challenges and is asking Nigerians to commit to a common endeavor in national interest. The president stated this during the opening session of the Special Summit on National Security organized by the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, the president of the Senate, Senator Ahmed Lawan, says the procurement processes by security agencies must be reviewed by the National Assembly and the architecture of the security system reviewed for better results. Governor Nasser El-Rufai has approved the disengagement of 19 political appointees in the first phase of public servants who will depart the public service in continuation of right-sizing the workforce. The governor in a statement thanks the departing officials for their services to the state and wishes them well in their future endeavors. It's a joyous mood in the camp of the PDP and that of Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State as the governor applauded the appeal court for upholding his victory at the polls and the tribunal ruling. The governor says the verdict of the Court of Appeal is another victory for Edo people, a testament to the fairness and equity of the judiciary. Meanwhile, his deputy, Philip Shaibu, has described the judiciary as being courageous and ready to defend the common man at all times.
My joy is that first to thank God, thank the judges for being courageous, and to also thank our legal team and Edo people for their prayers.
The president of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has pledged more support for women in politics in order for them to excel and reap the dividends of democracy. Speaking at an event in Damaturu, the Yobe State capital, to celebrate women in politics, organized by Forum for Promotion of Gender Equity and Moral Values, Senator Lawan insists that many women can perform better than some men.
So, let's get to it, everyone, shall we? The public hearing for the alteration of the Nigerian Constitution has begun across different centers in the regions as scheduled by the Senate committee in charge of the Constitution Amendment. The two-day exercise witnessed some attendance from civil society, the non-governmental organizations, traditional institutions, the political class, and labor. In Lagos, the senator who represented the Deputy Senate President, who is the chairman of the Amendment Committee, Senator Oluremi Tunwe, also a member of the committee, says the idea of the constitutional amendment is to resolve some of the problems of the nation. Take a listen to what she said at the sideline of that event.
Nobody's even talking about the children. Nobody. So we all think that, oh, some people are, they're being neglected. So who comes and speak on behalf of the children? And I pray that tomorrow we will have people to come and talk about child's rights. And we can see a lot of things happening to them. So when we look at it, it's very easy to point at government that government is selfish. But you can see everybody is only just very few people are talking about the generality of the Constitution, how it affects them. You can see everybody is just looking at the bit that it affects them, which is great. But we are going to look at it, and then you can see what this 9th Assembly is doing. We are looking at the previous amendments, what did not make certain things scale through, and see whether it suits the times we are living in.
Well, in the Lagos Center, the Lagos State Governor, who also attended the event and declared it open, is seeking for a special status for Lagos. What does that mean? Take a listen to Governor Sanwo-Olu.
For us in Lagos State, the issue of state police and fiscal federalism are top of the priority list for us. In this ongoing review process, equally fundamental, particularly for us in Lagos, is the issue around the special economic status for Lagos. Considering our place in national economy and the special burden we bear by virtue of our large population and the very limited landmass that we have. I believe the need for this special status has been sufficiently articulated and justified. It suffices for me at this point to restate that this request is by no means a selfish one, but one that is actually in the interest of every Nigerian and of Nigeria as a nation. The progress and prosperity of Nigeria is inextricably linked to the progress and prosperity of Lagos State. A special status for Lagos State, therefore, must be a concern not only for the people of Lagos State alone, but for the entire Nigerian nation.
So you heard him there. Well, don't forget that it's not only in Lagos that all this happened. It is happening across the different regions, at least in 12 centers, 2 centers for each of the regions: the southeast, the south-south, the northeast, the northwest, the south-south, and also the north-central. You have all of the regions captured in all of this. So let's get some perspectives on the exercise, the significance and the prospect of this process answering to the agitations of Nigerians. Interesting scenarios have played out in all of this. But you might be seated wherever you may be. Maybe you are waiting to watch the Manchester United game and the Europa League final, or you are in the comfort of your living room, or in fact you are on the road, or perhaps you're trying to get your generator to start to watch this television show. Let me get what you might be thinking perhaps tonight is the fact that how does this answer to the many questions you have on your mind? I have some of those questions also, but then the question is, where do we go from here? The agitations is right across the land. I have a panel that will be answering some of your questions tonight. Where do we go as a nation? Scrapping, amending the Constitution? Is that the answer? I'm being joined by Senator Teslim Folarin, representing Oyo South at the Senate. He joins us from Ikeja area of Lagos. And from our Abuja studio is Professor Abubakar Sulaiman. He is the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. And virtually is Dr. Usman Bugaje, a former federal lawmaker and political historian. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight on the program. So let's get started. In the 7th and in the 8th Assembly, there are efforts to amend the Constitution, but those exercises failed. They didn't sail through. Let me begin the conversation tonight with Dr. Usman Bugaje. Doc, give us an understanding of, you've spoken about some of these processes. You've given insight on what this means for Nigeria. Do you hope that this exercise will help in answering those critical questions that have caused agitations across the land?
Very much for inviting me to this, even though I will not be staying long. But let me say straight away, every Nigerian is yearning for a better constitution that we have. So I have no doubt in my mind that we can do with a much better constitution than the one we're operating. But I also think that we should not be carried away by the amendments that might come through this constitution to ignore the fact that what essentially matters is not so much the constitution, that's the product, but also the process, because the process is what confirms legitimacy to the product. And it's very important that we pay attention to the process itself. But also important, I think at this point in time, we have to ask the Senate, and that also applies to the House of Representatives, what exactly is the priority of the country at this point in time? I don't know what the priority of the two chambers are, but I'm certain that the priority of Nigerians at the moment is security, because in the hierarchy of human life, the hierarchy of human needs, human life comes first. And therefore, whatever we are going to do, we have to make sure that first there is security for human life. And in this respect, the National Assembly must, ask its own questions. At this point in time, is it really the kind of thing that you want to be doing? I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying we should not do it, but I'm saying that we have got to prioritize, and we cannot ignore the context within which we are operating. So coming back to the point, part of the problem why amendments have not sailed through is the same reason why certain laws that have taken time to be enacted by the National Assembly has not been signed, like the last Electoral Act is still hanging. I can't remember the excuses that were given by the president for not signing it, but I think one of them was that time was too short. So if it was just time that was too short after the election, this law should have been signed. So the people are reading motives both within the legislature and the executive. And therefore, this is why we need to come clean, be transparent, allow people to speak their minds. Democracy is about ideas, it's about expression of opinions. You don't have to like them. But you see, it's healthier for society to express its opinions and to submit to a superior wisdom or superior argument after the discussions, rather than just simply to shut people down. So yes, there has been amendments before that did not succeed. They did not succeed because the National Assembly itself, even in doing what they were doing, they did not come out clearly to show that they were committed to the process itself. And there were lots of other things. For example, the effort of the qualification to contest election is something that many people cannot bring to the National Assembly at the moment. We have a problem of competence in governance. And at the moment, it's simply secondary school education or equivalent. Why should we in the 21st century, forget about the issue of...
I think we're having an issue with the connection with Dr. Bugaje there. But let me bring Professor Sulaiman into the conversation. The big question we're looking at now is the issue of how the past process failed. And for those who have criticized this process, saying, look, what has happened? We spent billions of naira executing these processes, and at the end of the day, it's not signed, it won't come through. But give us a sense of history. What happened to the 7th, 8th assembly processes of this constitutional amendment? Why they failed? Do you see the same thing happening this time around?
Thank you very much, Seun. I'm not a parliamentarian, but at least as an historian and political scientist, we have some variables, some data to work with. Yes, there are so many issues, so many factors responsible for the failure of the past exercises. And one of those issues, as you rightly know, is purely political, especially as to do with the 8th Assembly. There were so many nagging political issues. There were frictions between the National Assembly and the executive. There were a lot of infightings between members of the National Assembly. These contestations among the various actors in the 8th Assembly was responsible for the failures, for the lack of frictions, for the lack of ease movements of passage of bills and some other, fundamental issues. In the 7th Assembly, we have just one political party in control, the PDP then, and you begin to wonder what really happened. But I want to believe that then what happened was purely because at the point we are talking about amending the Constitution then, we had in place a conference, what we call a confab, that the report was submitted, awaiting National Assembly, deliberations on it, and before you know it, election setting, and as you all know, nothing was done. But fundamentally, I want to believe that, as my colleague Bugaje rightly pointed out, the questions of amending the Constitution is not much of the question, but the process of the amendment. Secondly, the Constitution has been a problem. There are so many fundamental issues that borders on fiscal, federalism, issue that borders on gender inclusivity, issue that borders on electoral reform, issue that borders on child rights, issue that borders on alienations by certain sections of Nigerian people. These are fundamental issues that need to be looked into. And I would want to subscribe to the notion that we have to leave one problem for another problem to be solved. We can solve the problem simultaneously. Yeah, there are security issues. Yeah, there are economic crises. But those, contradictions, what I call the centrifugal force that are pushing us apart, need to be looked into. I think with the new National Assembly, and the kind of harmony between National Assembly and the executive, or to be precise, between the legislature and the executive, I do not see the kind of frictions, the kind of infighting, the kind of problem we identify or we saw in the 8th Assembly, emitting again under this. So I want to believe in the leadership of this 9th Assembly. Yeah, there are issues. People came from different, political alienation. They came from different geopolitical zones. We have so many tribes, we have so many ethnic groups, we have so many religious groups. These are fundamental secondary contradictions that are there. But I want to believe with the kind of harmony we are enjoying now, with the kind of smooth sailing process, with the kind of relationship existing between the executive and the National Assembly, I want to see a situation where, with the willingness on the part of the leadership of the National Assembly, I want to believe that this time around, the amendment to the Nigerian Constitution as is commencing today, we have a smooth sailing, and by next year, hopefully before election, we have a new brand constitution.
Okay, so let me go back to Dr. Bugaje. I know politics is science. Sometimes you need to have your data, to have your hypotheses, and you go from one data to the answer. But sometimes we have to also speak to reason. You have to also look at issue of psychology to be able to predict properly in our political climate. So let me put you on the spot, Dr. Usman Bugaje, tonight. Do you think that this present political leadership in the country has the political will to ensure that this process will sail through? Because it's another kettle of fish entirely to have the process go through the legislative process, then have the executive append it and sign it off. Do you see that happening? Do you see the president, let me be frank, the president happening to sign this off at the end of the day?
It's a straight no. I don't think so. I'll be glad if they can prove me wrong. This particular National Assembly has lost the respect of the executive arm of government. We have seen that severally. How many times have they called? They have made resolutions upon resolutions. They have been ignored by the executive arm. And therefore, they don't seem to me to have even the respect of the executive. To be able to see through these processes. Electoral Act, they did it, they sent it for assent, and it has not been assented to. What have they done? If there is something wrong with the grudge or whatever, let them bring it back to the National Assembly. These are some of the litmus tests, of their own ability or their own political will. And they have shown severally through some of these things. I would be glad if they do. I would be happy if they become angry with what I'm saying and say, let us prove him wrong. I'll be very happy to be proven wrong. But as far as I can see and as far as I know, and I don't claim to know everything or to see everything, I can say for now that there is no hope that whatever exercise comes through is going to sail through. But I'm waiting to be proven wrong, and I'll be glad to.
All right. So, Dr. Bugaje and Professor Sulaiman, let me play this soundbite for you. It's one of the incidents that happened earlier today at the public hearing. One of the groups represented and make presentation is a Fixed Politics Initiative. Something came out to me as an attendee of that event, is the fact that they are saying that that exercise is in futility. We do not need a public hearing. That's according to them. They say it should be scrapped. Now, what we need is a brand new constitution. Take a listen to E.A. Jonathan, who represented the Fixed Politics Initiative there at the Lagos presentation.
We have asked several questions. We at the Fixed Politics Initiative urge the National Assembly to consider the following. 1, initiate a process towards the creation of a new constitution, as an amendment is inadequate to address the multiple structural issues that threaten the Nigerian state. 2, halt the current constitutional amendment process and immediately initiate a multi-stakeholders discussion of the pathway to a new citizens-led constitution. 3, enact a law that will outline the drafting and transition process in support of B above. And lastly, enact a constitutional amendment process that will authorize a referendum to accept the outcome of the drafting of the new constitution.
Dr. Bugaje, you heard there, and this has stated that what we need is a brand new constitution. According to that group, do you think that some of the things she stated there and the demands of this group is realistic? Do you think that that is the way to go?
This is democracy. We must admit all views, all ideas, and we should not simply throw them away because we don't like them or because we don't understand them. So I would rather we put this on discussion. Let it be discussed. Let people, be allowed to express their own views on this. In other words, this is one view among other views. Now, which view should prevail eventually is the view that has got a stronger argument. And that's how discussions should go. So don't look at who is presenting. Look at the substance of what is being presented and see if you have got a better argument. Fine. then the obvious thing would be, okay, the process of, enacting a new constitution is going to be cumbersome, is going to be this, but it's something that would be needed at some stage of our own evolution as a state. Granted that we may not be able to do that now, and we want to do amendments, fine, we can say, fine, this is an idea that we can plan for. Meanwhile, we need to amend issues like the devolution of power, issues like the wealth sharing, issues of citizenship and the indigenship, and these kind of issues that are vexing or that are, heating the system at the moment. We can do that. But I think what they are saying, they have got every right as Nigerians to express their own view and to, marshal their own argument. And for me, what we require to do is to engage with some of these ideas, and at the end of the day to say, okay, what are those ideas that have got a superior argument, or those that are likely to be much better for the nation eventually? This is how it should go.
We're due for a commercial break. Stay with us, gentlemen. We take a break, and when we return, my panel will resume the conversation on which way forward Nigeria. Repeal, remove, amend, fix the constitution. What is the way out of this quagmire the nation Nigeria has found itself? Will the people be able to rise up in getting a solution to their own problems? Let's get back to the conversation after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on Politics Today on Channels Television. The conversation is perhaps the most serious conversation in the land, which a lot of people think might be the solution to our problem. So take a look at some of the points for the constitutional amendment in the public hearing that is holding for 2 days across 12 centers in Nigeria. So issues of federal structure in governance and devolution of power, local government administration and local government autonomy, public revenue, fiscal federalism and revenue allocation, establishment of state police, election reforms and justice delivery, issues of residency and indigenship, immunity removal in prima facie criminal cases, constitutional roles for traditional rulers, states and local government creation. These are some of the issues. And my panel tonight, earlier on we had Dr. Usman Bugaje, but he's since left because of some of other engagement that he has. Professor Abubakar Sulaiman is still with us right here on the program. And we've since been joined by Senator Teslim Folarin, the senator representing Oyo South in the National Assembly. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for staying with us right here on the program. Let me perhaps bring Senator Folarin into the conversation before I go to Abuja studio with Prof. Senator, a lot of Nigerians are agitated and they're hoping that they can get answer to the nagging challenges or the problems the nation is facing. Issue of security topped the agenda. State policing, issues of true federalism, how the state can take on some of these issues that need to be taken on in their own unit. But the question people are asking is whether or not this exercise will sail through, and it will not go the way the 7th and the 8th National Assembly exercises went. What are the assurances that we can get from this National Assembly? Can you give us any?
Thank you, Sheung. But before I answer your question, let me quickly correct you. I represent Oyo Central, not Oyo South. So having said that, I think this National Assembly, under the leadership of Dr. Lawan, is very determined to make that difference. That I can guarantee you. We won't be, going through all this if we don't mean business. We really do mean business this time around. I can guarantee that.
Senator, apologies for your appellation, your title, but I covered effectively what happened in the 7th Assembly, and I did same in the 8th Assembly, and I'm doing now in the 9th Assembly. So when we make reference to some of these past and the history in this constitutional amendment process, some of us have experience of how some of these things has failed. So the question is that what lesson has this National Assembly learned from what has happened in the last 8 years?
I mean, obviously, you have to learn lessons. You learn lessons as you proceed. I do recall that in 2003, when we tried to amend the Constitution, we put all the bills under one single bill. And when the third term thing failed, the whole thing collapsed. And so what we intend to do now, or what I can assure you we will do, is that every item will be put in a single bill and looked at its own merit.
Okay,
so there's no question. The point I'm trying to make is there's no question of, yeah.
So I was going to ask.
Go on, I mean, issues you went, hang on.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hang on. You know, issues like, for instance, electoral reforms would be done. It would be standalone. It would be dealt with as such. So if it sails through, it sails through. If it fails, it fails. It wouldn't affect things like devolution of powers. Everything will be done standalone.
Oh, fantastic. That is good news. So that everything is not bunched together, and when they fall apart, everything falls apart. So it's good news that we understand that some of these bills will stand alone. But Senator Tinubu said that they've learned the lesson and they are bringing and importing some of what they've experienced in 7th and 8th Assembly into this process. Give us an understanding of how this will work. Is it going to be the cast of those framing of those bills that you'll just be bringing in, or you are adjusting it, or how will this work?
No. See, as far as we're concerned, we're starting afresh. We want to listen to Nigerians. The whole idea of a public hearing is it's a tool we use to gauge public opinion, to feel the pulse of the people. And when we finish that process, then we put it together and then have our own debates in the National Assembly, and then take it from there.
So another question that is bothering everybody is whether or not the National Assembly or the senators are listening to what some Nigerians are saying. Some Nigerians are saying, look, the process of amending the law or this constitution is a waste of time. According to them, that's their opinion, that is a waste of time. And their reasons, or their reason is this, that the military gave us this constitution and it does not represent the voices of the Nigerian people. So are you listening to that argument to say we need a brand new constitution, not fixing a vehicle that is faulty and flawed that they say might not take us, that will take us nowhere?
Yeah, see, my own view is this. To start with, we have to listen to people. That's why we're here. We're not going to sit here and then decide this is good for the nation. No, that's the whole essence of the public hearing. But then there are school of thoughts, like you rightly said, there's a school of thought that says, let's scrap this whole thing and then start from afresh, because it's, according to you, or what people say, it's a military constitution. And then there's the other school of thought that says, well, let's keep amending it. You see, my own view is that we wouldn't have a perfect constitution. And as we grow as a nation, there will always be issues. And the whole idea of this sort of exercise is to address those issues. If you look at the issues we have now, they're quite different from the issues we had 4 years ago. So, if you're asking my own personal opinion, I think what we're doing is just about the right thing. But having said that, Nigerians would have their views. We will put it together in a single document, and then we'll have a robust debate about it. But that's my own personal view.
So before I go to Professor Suleiman, the question is, insecurity is perhaps Nigeria's major problem at the moment. How do you hope that this exercise will fix that problem? Senator, I don't know. I'm not sure you got what the question, but let me go again. Insecurity seems to be Nigeria's biggest problem.
I had the. Yeah, I had the question you asked Professor Sulaiman, but go on.
No, actually, it was you that I wanted to ask you that question. That how do you think that these exercises will fix our biggest problem in Nigeria today, which is insecurity?
Well, people are coming with all sorts of ideas. We've received memoranda on this on the issue of insecurity. Now, if you're asking my own personal opinion, again, before I go into that, people have talked about a state police, and then you hear the other school of thought that says, "Oh, we're not ripe for that." So my own take is that after we restructure, things will get better. Again, my own view is that this one-size-fits-all policy that we appear to be using in this country is just not working. That's the truth of the matter. The reason why we have all these agitations is that people don't feel a sense of justice. And so, once we fix the issue of restructuring, where power is devolved, that's my own opinion, where power is devolved to the states. And then states will then have the responsibility of then tackling all these issues of, insecurity, as you say. The Nigerian police, as good as they are, clearly cannot meet the challenges of today. It's clear. Everyone can see that. And so we need to do better than this. So we need to give responsibilities to the state. That's my own opinion. Now, for instance, you have a police constable from Borno, and then you tell him to come and police in Ibadan, where I come from. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So these are the issues we need to look at.
Okay, Senator, stay with us. Let me go to our Abuja studio. Professor, you heard Dr. Buga just say, look, it doesn't think that the present political leadership in this country will assent to these all exercise at the end of the day. Do you fear? Do you have the same fear?
I think going forward in this country, we shouldn't be pessimistic about the process or about what our policy makers or political class are doing. Yeah, there were issues in the past. There was skepticism in the past. And as I keep on saying, you see, the kind of democracy we practice in this country, not only in this country anyway, is one democracy that tends to give power to the executive. Whether it's 9th Assembly, whether it's 8th Assembly, whether it's 7th Assembly, the executive is almost more vehement, more powerful when it comes to decision. The president controls the law enforcement agency. The government, the executive control, the power of court in terms of the appointments of the Secretary General of the Federation. The minister implement policy. So it's one, system that tends to give more power to the president and to the governors, regardless of the kind of legislature we have in the country. 9th Assembly, 8th Assembly, it's to be the same thing, because the parliament doesn't have the power over the law enforcement agency. They can do oversighting, they can make discourse, they can deliberate on issues, they can summon chief executive. When it comes to enforcement, when it comes to compliance, they don't have the wherewithal to ensure compliance. And that's a major problem. So the problem we had in the 7th Assembly, 8th Assembly is normal. It can still happen under 9th Assembly. But the good thing is that we have 9th Assembly, be it the PDP or the APC, to a large extent we have been having this kind of harmony and determination and the willingness on the part of the leadership of both houses to say we must get this done. Yeah, there were issues in the recent past, no doubt about that. And let us give it to them. The Parliament, the National Assembly, for instance, they have taken the front burner on so many fundamental issues. The issue that borders on COVID, for instance, the one that borders on security. As we are talking today, the House of Rep is meeting on security. People have been calling for security summit for the past 2 years. They are taking, the front line now. The senators have taken so many decisions, whether it's respected by the executive or not. So I think we should give the kudos to this, Parliament. There were issues. There were friction. There were so many appellations. There were so many stigmatization on the National Assembly. There's no doubt about that. But whether they have been doing what they should do, especially regarding to so many fundamental issues in the last 2 years, I think we have to give kudos to them. And I want to believe that Mr. President, as we have it now, is not going for third time. Is an elder statesman in this country. He has done it before. It's not perfect. There were issues, there were shortcomings, there were weaknesses. But when it comes to getting a new constitution amended, appending his signature or assent the bill on the new constitution, I don't want to be pessimistic about it. I want to believe that this time around we shall get it right. So, as Bugajirale pointed out, we need a political will. And I see that will on the side of the legislature. And I want to believe that with the kind of rapport, the kind of relationship, the kind of understanding between the two organs of government, I want to believe that this time around, this process of amending the Constitution, we set through, and in the next couple of months, hopefully, we shall have a new brand constitutions, depending on the readiness of Nigerian people to want to key into the exercise from different geopolitical zones. It's not much of the executive, not much of the legislature, but much of Nigerian followers and our different political class across the geopolitical zone. We must build national consensus to agree on so many issues. We must build consensus on how to fight insecurity. As we are talking today, the governors, they are not united. As we are talking today, the various political class along religious lines are not united. As we are talking today, the terrorists, they have some sympathizers among Nigeria that believe, yeah, what we are doing is right. As long as we have this kind of, orientation, this attitude, this value orientation, this perception to what we call a national, fundamental issue, we cannot get it. It's not about the policymaker. As Senator Farani pointed out, there are so many issues when you talk of security. Amendment the Constitution can, roll out on issue of security. We talk of overlapping mandates of the security agency. It's part of the issue they need to look into. We talk about the state police. It's one of the fundamental issues we need to look into. We talk of some section of the country or some, sects being alienated from governance. So the issue of inclusivity, participation, the issue of economic well-being of Nigerian people, these are fundamental issues that tend to permeate into what we call a big threat to Nigerian security. And these are the gamut of issues that we must all have that hope. All right. We must lift our spirit up. Let's key into what they are doing. Let's make our feeling known through our federal memoranda, and let's get starting in the next couple of days.
All right. So, you use the word brand new. If it's a constitution that is repaired, it can never be brand new. It can only be a fixed constitution. A brand new constitution will mean that we have, from the scratch, we are having a new constitution. That's what I understand as a brand new, because that's the argument some people have.
Through amendment, you can overhaul. Through amendment, you can overhaul. We
but
can
this
decide
exercise,
to change the entire thing.
But this exercise is not doing that. This exercise is just fixing segments of the Constitution. So it's not giving us an overhaul. So this process will not give us a brand new.
Senator Farani just said one thing now. People are at liberty to come up and express their opinions on issues. If we believe, for instance, that what we need is not segment amendment, let it come out. We have seen geopolitical zone. The senators, they have all gone to the various constituency now. Nigeria should come out to express their opinions. If we agree that what we want is a serious overhauling of the entire system, they have no option but to key into that agenda.
Fantastic. So, before I go back to Senator Folarin, let's look at the list that China has put together on some of the issues we understand have been brought forward for the public hearing. Number 1 and point number 4 are very critical for me when we're talking about security. So, Prof, if you look at it, the first item, federal structure in governance and devolution of power, 1. And item number 4, establishment of state police. I understand and I think that this will address the issue of security. But in reality, some governors are even divided over how the state policing idea will go. Some are of the opinion that it will be misused if there is state policing. In your view, you are a researcher, you are an academic, you are a scholar. Because people have said, let us fashion a constitution based on what will suit our situation, our ethnic nationality, our taste, our culture. Will state policing work for Nigeria?
Seun, thank you very much. Our problem is not the policy, it's not the constitutions, it's our people. Before now, the center used to conduct elections for local governments. We clamored that local government elections should be conducted by state governments. When that policy or that law was being implemented, what have we seen in this country? We see a situation where governors abuse that privileges. No state governments, no state governors has ever allowed opposition in that states to have election, a smooth local government election. In the last couple of years, there's nothing wrong in having state police. But with the caliber, with the character, with the respect of governors we have in this country, are we sure that they will judiciously and they will not abuse that right of having control over the policing of the states? That's the big question. Are we sure? Governors that control in its entirety and influence what legislature at the state level does, governors that control the state independent electoral commissions, not allowing their opposition to have any say in governance, governors that abuse a lot of privileges given to them at the subnational level. To me, as good as that concept and that clamor for state police is, I don't think we are right for it now in this country. Not with the kind of governance or the kind of state government we have at the very subnational level. Good, beautiful in terms of understanding the terrain. Good, beautiful in terms of understanding the logistics. Beautiful in terms of, mastering, the various clinics of that state in policing and ensuring security. But the point is, while we are trying to solve one problem, I only want us to, get ourselves in a more fundamental and more morbid problem. And that is my fear about state policing. State policing, yes, is good, but now we are not right for it, and we must be very careful.
Let me go to Senator Folarin. Senator, one of the presentations made today in Lagos is one of your constituents, members, proposing an Ibadan state. The state creation is, interestingly, part of the items here. Give us an understanding why there should be an Ibadan state.
Well, I'm sure a lot of zones would. No, I didn't say that, Corey. But honestly, I mean, one of the things we say. No. I'll tell you. One of the things we say is this: that of all the old state capitals, it is only Ibadan that does not have a state, and it just doesn't make sense. If you look at the landmass and the population of your state, we honestly believe that Ibadan should have its own state, like Kaduna State, like Enugu State, But can I quickly make a point on this insecurity issue again, please, Sean, before you go? You see, what we must do is to look at means of creating wealth. That's the first thing we must do: create wealth. If people are gainfully employed, have their businesses, then all this kidnapping, armed robbery, everything is going to reduce. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you must first of all create wealth. It's very important. And I think the organ or the level to create this wealth has to be the states, and which was the point I made about this, one size fits all. The federal government cannot do all these things. We need to empower the states to take up more responsibilities, to develop their own resources. And because at the end of the day, it's about, look, people don't have jobs. People are hungry. The poverty level, that's what it's all about. And that's what then leads to all this insecurity. And so, in talking about how to tackle insecurity, we must also think about creating wealth.
Thank you. Interesting. But before we go, I'd like you to, maybe as a final word, in 30 seconds each, but let me allow you to listen to this woman who made a presentation, and she said the language in the Constitution in some areas are very, very insensitive. Dr. Abiodun Afolabi, take a listen to her.
We have asked several questions about to what extent are gender issues considered in the constitutional and electoral process in Nigeria. How broadly are the system interpreted to accommodate particular needs of women and other vulnerable groups? How can the Constitution open up legitimate spaces to address these gaps? And also, how can we continue to allow 50% of the population to remain excluded, marginalized? So we demand for the following. There's a problem with the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution. And that's why we also align with people who are calling for a new constitution that is people-led, that speaks to the aspiration of the Nigerian people, particularly women and children. The first issue that we have is that the 1999 constitution language is not sensitive.
So let's close the show now, and we have 60 seconds to do that. I'll allow Senator Fulani to quickly react to this in 30 seconds. What's your reaction to what Dr. Akyode said there?
Well, I was there when she made that presentation, which I thought was a brilliant. For me, we need to have a constitution that would guarantee justice and fairness for everyone. There are women who would hold their own any day, anytime. I know women. I think what we need to do is to craft the constitution in a way that would give them the opportunity, or give them the platform to fulfill their potential.
All right, Professor Suleiman, your reaction to what Dr. Akyode Afolabi said in 30 seconds.
I think the woman is right. Everybody must be given the sense of belonging. There must be inclusion as against exclusion. There must be justice and fairness. Regardless of where we come from, whether we are Yoruba, we are Hausa, we are Muslim, we are Christian. Let us be fair. And when people tend to be fair with one another, just, and we're able to bring every shade of this country on board in governance, there'll be less restiveness, there'll be peace, and to a large extent, there'll be development. Anything short of that, there will continue to be anarchy and violence, which we don't pray for. We should give this Net Assembly that hope. We should support them, and we should have our spirit lift up, open that better things will come in no sooner time. Thank you very much.
Professor Abubakar Sulaiman, a former Minister of National Planning and the current Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, thank you for your time tonight. As well as Senator Teslim Folari, Senator representing Oyo Central in the National Assembly. Thank you. It's a pleasure seeing you again, Senator. And that's it for the show tonight. Don't forget also we had Dr. Usman Bugaje, who left for some important engagement. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'm Seun Akimbale. Bye for now.